Welcome back to the Weekend Express. Let's focus on this conversation now. The role of residents' associations in enhancing delivery of services in the national and county governments. Just how can citizens come together to ensure accountability by the government, both national and on the county level? And with us in studio for this conversation is Henry Ochieng, the CEO of the Kenya Alliance of Resident Associations, and he will be helping us just to demystify and clear up this issue. So, Henry, many Kenyans are not even aware of resident associations. So let's begin with that. What is a resident association?
Thank you very much for having me in this show. When talk about resident associations, is basically, in a simple term, people within a particular geographical location organizing themselves in such a way that they can be able to articulate or address the issue, the service delivery challenges that they face in that particular area. So what happens is, for instance, you walk into an estate, you find that maybe there are about 160 or 150 housing units. But within that particular estate, you'll find that people may be having challenges about maybe the infrastructure, security, environment. But you see, if they were to try to address those issues as individuals, then the impact will be very minimal. So what happens is that in order to be able to have an estate where they can be proud of and be able to address their issues, they form an association which is registered under the Societies Act, Cap 108. So the role of this particular association is to make sure that whatever kind of issues that are affecting members of that particular estate are actually addressed in a conclusive way. But most importantly, the main issue of coming up with the association is for them to be able to engage in a structured way with the government, so to speak. Because when you talk about public services, it's actually the government supposed to provide the services. But in most cases, you realize that the government falls short of expectations. So in order for people to be able to also be part of the solution, they form resident associations, and through that kind of vehicle, they engage the government and other service providers to ensure that whatever kind of issues they have are addressed conclusively. So in brief, it's basically people trying to organize themselves to be able to be at a point where they can find solutions to the issues that are affecting them, especially as far as service delivery is concerned. Yes.
Right. Now, talk to us about how the new system of devolution has made it easier for Kenyans to participate in matters governance, as you're telling us.
If you look at the constitution that we have currently, the constitution that was adopted in 2010, almost every aspect of it is talking about public participation. And there's nothing that you can do in this country right now in terms of service delivery without bringing in the aspect of public participation. Article 10 of that particular constitution expressly states that one of our national values and principles as a country is public participation. And if you go through the entire constitution, almost in every chapter, you find that the aspect of public participation is clearly espoused, and no decision, whether it is at the national level or at the county level, can be undertaken without involving the public. If you go to other legislations that are enabling the constitution, like the County Government Act, the Urban Areas and Cities Act, all these talk about public participation. So the fact that we have a framework that give us a mandate as citizens to participate in decision making, that in itself makes it easier for citizens to participate in a number of processes. But I think the most important thing is that now the citizens have been given an opportunity to have a voice in setting their priorities, so that you don't have somebody seated somewhere, maybe in Nairobi, for instance, and making decisions for somebody in Kisumu when they have no idea what are the priorities at that particular level.
Right.
So what we can be able to say is that the kind of legal framework we currently have has made it much, much easier for groups like resident associations to engage the government, whether it is at the county or national level, on setting priorities and ensuring that whatever kind of expectations they have in terms of service delivery are actually taken on board when planning. And it's not just about priorities, but it's about also monitoring what is happening, because now once you have been able to give your input in terms of service delivery, we also have access to information law, which now enables you to even ask questions and demand for information on what is happening at the government level and what are the progress of some of the issues that you're talking about. And you are able to, as a citizen, ask questions where you think that things are not happening right and hold the government to account. So in a nutshell, we have a very progressive constitution, and the aspect of public participation actually is like the pillar of that constitution, because in every step, every decision making, every policy formulation process, it is a requirement that you must be able to involve the public, you must be able to involve the citizens, and their voice must be heard. Not just for the sake of it, because what we've had in the past, before we had the new constitution, was that there was an element of public participation, but the way it was being done, it was at the whims of people in office.
Right.
You could consult if you want. If you don't want, you can't consult. But even if you consult, there was any guarantee that whatever I pass over as a citizen will find its space in the final decision-making table. So it was like some kind of at the whims of individuals. But right now, we have it clearly stated in the Constitution and in various legislation, and there's even a recourse in case somebody does not follow that particular process. As a citizen, I can walk into a court of law and demand for some kind of explanation and action to be taken against that particular officer. So the mere fact that we have those laws clearly stated in the Constitution and other legislation gives us more power as resident associations and as citizens to demand for better services, to demand to be consulted, and to ensure that whatever outcome comes out of that particular process is actually reflecting our aspiration and expectations as citizens. Yes.
And of course, we have to keep in mind that resident associations make it easier for problems or issues tailor-made to a certain, say, estate or village to be taken care of. Because I would imagine it's very difficult for an individual to approach the national government and tell them we have a problem with night runners in my village, and the national government is busy fighting terrorism,
Yeah.
So, it's definitely a very good initiative to solve issues like that. But traditionally, resident associations have been viewed as a preserve of the rich and the affluent, those who live in suburbs. Is this trend changing?
I think that has been the perception initially, because when the whole concept of resident association came into being in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was mainly people who are in the affluent areas who appear to be driving the whole idea, because I think they were in a better place to understand their rights and responsibility as citizens when it comes to service delivery. And they were better placed to make some demands on the government based on the fact that they're taxpayers. So the few people who started the whole idea of resident associations were largely people from the affluent areas. I think one of the oldest resident associations in this country is the Karen Langata District Association, which has been there for almost 60 years now. So, and they were one of the founder members even of Kara. So what happened is that maybe that perception stuck in the mind of people that this is something for the elite. But I can tell you for sure that right now you go to every corner of this country, whether it is a high class, middle class, or low class, you'll find the idea and the concept of resident association entrenching itself, because people have realized that you are not going to make any headway, you're not going to make any impact if you try to engage the government as an individual. Because there are very high chances that today if I walk into the office of the governor, for instance, and say that I have a problem with my security or environment in our estate, they'll simply ignore you, because for them maybe you'll just be an irritant on the corridors.
Right.
But if you walk there and say, I am a member of these particular resident associations, these are our members, and I'm here on behalf of our members.
Right.
Anybody in his right mind holding a position of authority cannot ignore that, because they know that you're not there to further your interests. You're not there to talk on your own behalf, but you're representing a critical mass of people who might not be there with you, but they know that you have gone to represent their issues. So having the resident associations makes it easier for that kind of engagement, and makes it easier even for the government itself now to address issues. Because if somebody walks into a particular area, for instance, and they want to address a service delivery challenge in that area, and they want to follow the law in terms of public participation, the first question they'll want to ask is, who do we talk to? Who is representing these people in this particular area? Because you just can't talk to anybody. So if they walk to a place and find that there's a very organized resident association, it has its officials, chairman, secretary, treasurer, they have their ways of doing things, mobilizing their members, then you simply now have to engage the officials of that particular association And then you can be sure that whatever issues you discuss with them is actually reflecting the expectations of the people that they represent.
Right.
So having structured way of engagement with the government is very important, so that even as we talk about public participation, we are actually talking about effective public participation that is reflecting the wishes and expectations of the masses. One of the things that even the government keep challenging the non-state actors, so to speak, or the citizens, is that if you want us to talk about public participation or citizen engagement, how do you go about it? Do we just walk in and start talking to anybody? So they also encourage us to be better organized, to be better coordinated, so that they can engage with an entity that is legal, an entity that is representative, and an entity that can be able now to articulate issues on behalf of their members.
Right.
So having resident association is very key to the process of public participation. Yes.
All right. We're speaking to Henry Ochieng, CEO of the Kenya Alliance of Residents Associations of Kenya. And we'd like to hear your contribution to this conversation as well. Do talk to us on Twitter at KTN Kenya, at KTN News, or tweet me directly at Michelle Ngele and tell us, what is your resident association doing in your area? If you are part or member of a residents association, what are you or your association doing in your area? Do speak to us about that. Now, Henry, we're speaking about resident associations having a relationship with local authorities. KARA, the alliance that you represent, has over 750 resident associations. But talk to us about the relationship with local authorities, because I understand that finances factor in as well when it comes to residents associations, and there are claims that residents associations of a higher financial status have better relations with the local authorities as compared to those with a low financial status.
I don't think the financial aspect is really a factor when it comes to the relationship between the resident associations and the local authorities or government for that matter. For me, I think what is most important is how well organized and coordinated you are.
Right.
Because it is not true that you need finances, for instance, to engage with the government. You don't really need finances. You don't need a lot of money to be able to do that. You only need to be very organized, and you only need to to understand what exactly you expect from the government. And of course, you also need to understand your responsibility, because again, it's not just about one-sided kind of relationship. We also have responsibility as resident associations, and we also have expectations. So if you have an association that really understand who they are, understand what they need, what they expect from the government, and where they want to go to as an association, then that in itself can be able to lead to an effective way of engagement. Because now when you walk into a government office, for instance, or a local authority office, then you have your issues well fleshed out. You really know exactly what you're looking for, and you really are very clear to the person you are dealing with on what you expect them to do. And that's why we say that the whole concept of resident associations, apart from organizing people within their locality, it's also a means of making sure that you are part of the solutions.
Right.
Because when you sit down as neighbors and you realize that there's a problem with your security, then you ask yourself, what do we do about this particular issue? Who do we involve? And what do we do in our own capacity as people who are directly affected by this particular issue? And in that kind of discussion, you come up with solutions. Some of the solutions will require that you do it within your own means, as neighbors. Some of the solutions will require that you involve other parties, like the government, for instance. And so with that kind of clarity and that kind of understanding, then you are at a position, whether you have money or you don't have money, to be able to ensure that whatever kind of issues that are coming up with are actually addressed, and we have a progressive way of finding solutions. So, of course, maybe there could be associations that are better financially endowed in terms of members' contribution and in terms of how much they can be able to mobilize for the resources. But that maybe only makes it easier for them to solve some of the solutions that they have within their locality as associations. But it doesn't mean that now they have better way of engagement with the government, because you really don't need money to be able to engage, given that now we have a legal framework of public participation, and there are ways in which you can be able to ensure that you are working with the government very closely as an association.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now take us through the process of forming and registering a residents association. Where does one start?
First of all, you have to understand your geographical locality as members of a particular neighborhood, whether it is an estate, a gated community, or a particular geographical area. So once you understand their boundaries, then you'll be able to come together as members of that particular neighborhood and agree that you want to form an association. And of course, in that process of agreement, now you have to understand why you want to form the associations, your objectives, and how you want the association to operate. So what happens is that at the very initial stages, and as members of a particular neighborhood, you have to agree on interim officials, because like I told you, the associations are structured vehicles that also have office bearers. So you have to come up with the officials, like the chairman, secretary, treasurer of that particular association. And then thereafter, you have to develop a constitution for the association. So this is the document that now will state very clearly who are the officials, what their roles and responsibility are, what are the objectives of the associations, what are the modalities of holding meetings, and who is supposed to convene a meeting. No, all those kind of things. Just like a document giving you some kind of guidelines on how the associations is going to operate and how it's going to run. So once you have the interim officials, you have the constitution in place, there are forms to be filled from the Register of Societies and signed by the interim officials. So those documents put together, and of course the resolution from the members that you want to form an association, then you file them at the Register of Societies, and that is where now that's the body that is responsible for registering association and more or less regulating the association. So through that process of filing the documents at the Register of Societies, you are able now to eventually get your certificate. If all the documents are in place, they've been vetted, they've been verified, and the registrar is satisfied that you have all the requirements, then you'll be registered as an association, and you'll get your certificate, and now you are in operation. So it's after registration and you have your certificate, that's when you can decide as an association that you want to have substantive officials for your association. And in that case, you have to convene an annual general meeting. In that particular meeting, then now you have your elections as an association, and be able now to elect your officials, who will now be responsible for the day-to-day management of the association, and of course reporting back to members through general meetings or regular meetings on what exactly is happening and what they expect to achieve as an association.
Right.
So basically that's the process, and of course as CARA we support those who want to register. We facilitate that kind of a process, and we ensure that people are able to be at a point where they have an association that is legally registered, and they're using it as a tool or as a vehicle for addressing their service delivery issues.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And let's talk about number. Is there a minimum number that should be part of the association? And are there issues like, say, monetary contributions, monthly, yearly?
Yes. The registration law says that you need at least 20 people or 20 households to be members who now can form the association. So once you have that minimum number, then now you can be able now to lodge your application. And of course, part of the provisions in the constitution of the association is that people will make monthly contributions, because you obviously need a bit of finances to do a bit of running the association, direct costs and all that. So members of the associations have to make contributions, and it is the members to agree on how they want to do that, the frequency of making the contribution, the amount that is supposed to be contributed, and even how that money is going to be used. So to make the whole association sustainable, the members must come up with regular contribution and ensure that there's something in the kitty to run the association. And of course, like I mentioned, they also have their regular meetings where they agree on a number of issues, including making variation on the contributions, on how frequently they want to have the meetings, who are the officials, and you know, all those kind of things that are directly related to the association. So it's a whole organization, so to speak, that has clear ways of management and mechanism of making sure that things are running as per the expectations of the members.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, we failed to mention that we have tenant associations, which are basically resident associations, because many residents in urban centers live in high-rise, apartments, and it's important to make them understand that they can have tenant associations, just in case they need something from the landlord or the landlord slacks with service delivery. But 750 associations under CARA. Talk to us about some of the benefits and the biggest gains that you've seen happen under residents associations.
One of them is what I've mentioned earlier, just the ability to be able to be better organized and engage with the government in a structured way. Because in the absence of that, then what you have is a situation where whatever kind of issues that you have as resident associations are not being effectively and conclusively addressed. So that structured engagement is very important in the sense that people are able to have issues addressed in a more effective way. And then number two is the ability of the resident associations themselves to be able to be proactive in the sense of getting solutions to their issues. You know, when people live in a particular estate and there's no coordination, there's nobody taking leadership on anything, then very soon you realize that there's something not going right. Because nobody will be bothering about, for instance, how the estate looks like. Nobody will be bothering about the security issues of the estate. And very soon you'll find people running into trouble in terms of the well-being of the estate, the security, environment, infrastructure, because there's really nobody taking responsibility and coming up with initiatives.
This is why we see Kenyans get into the Serikali Saidia.
Yeah, Serikali Saidia kind of
instead
things.
Of helping
now
themselves.
You think that because, for instance, I'm a taxpayer, I just have to sit back and wait for government to do everything for me.
Right.
And you can appreciate that that might not happen because government also has its limitations and it has its, it's lacking in capacity in some areas. So to drive away from that aspect of Serikali's idea, then people need to have such kind of vehicles or associations to be able now to be proactive and to be able to come up with solutions to their challenges. But I think now, most importantly, is that now that we are in the era of public participation as provided for in the Constitution, there's no better way of articulating that or realizing that particular aspect of all of the Constitution than through this kind of structured citizen organization, the resident associations. And we have seen a number of associations doing quite a good job in terms of addressing their issues. And it is through resident associations that we've had some estates, so to speak, being able to maintain their value, being able to maintain their character in terms of what kind of structures come up in that particular area, and being able to ensure that even the public spaces within the estate are not grabbed. Because one of the problems that we also struggle with in this country, and even at the neighborhood level, is that an estate comes up and it has provisions for social amenities, it has provisions for public spaces. But if there's nobody keeping an eye on that particular space, before you know it, there's a private property coming up in that particular space. And before you know it, the children don't have spaces to play. You don't have any places for social amenities. And the estate is no longer what you expected. So through the association, we've seen people being able to defend, to protect those kind of spaces and make sure that whatever kind of use they are meant for are actually put into place. And of course, we've also been able to see that through the associations, some laws have been influenced because we understand what is required for us to have an enabling environment as members of a particular neighborhood for certain issues to happen. So the associations have been able to be involved in a number of policy formulation processes, in coming up with a number of laws that are now finding their space in the government, the government laws. And they've been able to ensure that at the end of the day, their issues are actually being articulated, and they are finding themselves living in an estate or in a neighborhood that they expect to live in terms of the aesthetic value, in terms of the planning, and all those kind of things. Yeah, but I think most importantly is that through the associations, we've been able to bring or make sure that there's a coordination in how residents address their issues and in how various planning processes take place, so that you have a say in what kind of structure come up in your estate. You have a say on what kind of businesses that can be put up in your place, and you also have a say on the kind of policies that are being formulated that affect directly issues of service delivery.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Well, Henry Ochieng, thank you so much for speaking to us. He is the CEO of the Kenya Alliance of Residents.